Look what you've been eating for the last 500 years. Starch and blood. Starch and blood.
Starch and blood. With those two words, Dr. Sebi dismissed almost everything on the modern plate. The blood was the meat. Every cut of it muscle that was fed and filtered by blood, carried into you when you eat it. The starch was the bread, the pasta, the white rice, the cassava, the soft, broken-down carbohydrate at the center of nearly every meal. Two substances, he said, the human body was never built to run on. It sounds extreme, but when you trace where these foods actually come from and what they do inside a living cell, his warning lands much closer to the truth than most people expect. Because his real claim was that neither one was ever really food at all. They were, in his words, made in a laboratory. Start with the animals. Listen to how he says it.
We leave the plants. Just go to the birds. When you ask someone, what does bird eat? They say seeds and fruits. Not so. Some bird would eat you. You call them eagles. Eagle eats meat, but not so for a quetzal or a sparrow. So when God made the black man, you think he put a cow in Africa? You think he put a chicken? You think he put a goat? You think he put lamb? No, brothers and sisters. Lamb, goat, cows, and chicken are hybrids. They were made in a laboratory, and they're not African. But you go to Africa today, that is all they eat.
Made in a laboratory, not African. Strange as it sounds, the science of where these animals actually come from agrees with the spirit of it. Not one of them was domesticated in Africa. Cattle descend from a now extinct wild ox called the aurochs, first tamed in the Near East around 10,000 years ago. Chickens come from the red jungle fowl of Southeast Asia. Goats were domesticated in the mountains of Iran. Sheep from wild mouflon in the same region. The gentle farm animals we know today do not exist anywhere in nature. They were shaped generation by generation by human hands. Sebi called that made in a laboratory. A scientist would call it selective breeding. They are describing the same thing. But his real objection to meat went deeper than where it came from. It was about what meat actually is.
Then you drink blood because you like to eat that meat.
Eating meat, he said, means drinking blood. It is a harsh image, but it points at something real. Flesh carries heme iron, saturated fat, and compounds your gut turns into substances like TMAO, which a growing body of research has linked to strain on the heart and the arteries. He believed the body had to fight that food, rather than be fed by it, and large studies have repeatedly tied heavy red and processed meat to poorer long-term health. Where the establishment sees a risk factor, Sebi saw the same thing decades earlier and said it in plainer language. And it was not only meat. Even cow's milk, he argued, was never meant for the human body. Most adults on Earth, and the overwhelming majority of people of African and Asian descent, stop making enough of the enzyme that digests milk sugar after early childhood. For most of humanity, the body itself treats cow's milk as foreign. Then he turned from the animals to the crops, and to his boldest claim of all.
You say, my brother African, why do you eat cassava? It is the tradition of my people. Well, I'm not concerned with tradition. I'm concerned with culture, not tradition. Why do you eat gari? It's made from the cassava. God did not make cassava. Man did. And how do I know that? Well, I'm going to make it short. Anything that has starch is laboratory made. God did not make it.
Cassava was made by man, not by God. This is where it gets remarkable. Cassava is not African at all. It is a South American root carried across the Atlantic by Portuguese traders only about 500 years ago, almost exactly the timeline Sebi named. And raw cassava is genuinely dangerous. It contains compounds that release cyanide in amounts that can be deadly. You cannot simply pick it and eat it. It has to be soaked, fermented, pounded, and roasted, the very process that turns it into gari, before it is safe to swallow. So a food that must be chemically detoxified by human hands before your body can survive it is, in a real sense, man-made. His instinct was sharper than his wording, and he made that same charge against starch itself with one of the strangest lines in the entire lecture.
If I take those two compounds or those two items and put them into a biochemical perspective and begin to do analysis, what are we going to find in starch that would nourish my body when my body are made of electrons? There are no electrons in starch. So how am I going to replenish my energy? Oh no.
When Dr. Sebi said there are no electrons in starch, he wasn't talking about physics. He was talking about life. To him, a food was electric when it was whole and alive, the way it grew. And he had a point. Your body truly runs on electricity. Every heartbeat, every thought fires on minerals like potassium and magnesium, and whole living food keeps that system charged like a battery. The plants he pointed to are rich in those minerals. Refined white starch is not. When grain is milled white, the vitamins, the minerals, and the fiber are stripped away. White rice once lost so much thiamine, it triggered epidemics of a disease called beriberi. So when Sebi said starch has no electrons, he meant it has no life left to give. A biochemist would call it empty calories. The same warning in two languages.
Well, you see, when God made things that depend on a specific food. And we will begin with the plants. Whenever I want to cure someone, or heal someone, or treat someone of leukemia, I am talking about the blood. And in talking about the blood, I have to consider a plant that the DNA or the active ingredient is iron. And what plant is that? Well, we could name the burdock, the sarsaparilla, or the marula. But if I want to treat your bones, your bones, the one that makes you, that holds you up, I got to use calcium. But I have to go to a plant that has calcium. So I have to go to the ocean. That they call is sea moss, Irish moss. The DNA of the Irish moss is calcium.
Notice what he reached for. Not chemicals, but plants. For the blood, iron-rich plants like burdock and sarsaparilla. For the bones, sea moss, which is dense in plant-based calcium. And in his own nutritional guide, the foods he trusted were the old, untampered grains. Spelt, rye, quinoa, amaranth, fonio, and wild rice, which is not true rice at all, but the seed of a wild grass. Leafy greens, mushrooms, fresh fruit, nuts, and seeds. Foods in his words, that grew the way they were meant to. Not engineered, not stripped, not made in a laboratory. So, if you want to eat closer to the way he taught, the simplest first step is to swap the refined starch on your plate for one of those whole, ancient grains, and to lean on sea moss and leafy greens for the minerals he prized. I have linked a few clean, quality options, sea moss, the grains, and more, down in the description, so you do not have to guess which ones are worth buying. And I am curious, if you have already cut meat or starch from your plate, leave a comment and tell me what changed for you. Those stories help more people than you would think. Dr. Sebi used language that sounded extreme. Laboratories, blood, things he said God never made. But underneath the words was one steady idea. Eat what the earth actually grew, and let the body do the rest. If you want to see how that same thinking explains why he warned against other everyday foods, click the video on your screen right now. I will meet you there. And if this gave you something to think about, subscribe and stick around. There is a lot more to learn.